We're in a remote location. This is a conversation with Auspiddit.
What up, my guy?
So, tell us about your upbringing and your early childhood. How did that kind of like impact your music? What kind of music did you listen to back then, and what kind of outlook did it give you as a musician today?
Yeah, so one thing that was really impactful about just my childhood in general was my mother and my father. They love music. So my mother, she was really into like soul music, like Sade, Tina Marie,
Mm.
things like that. And my father, he's like a jazz head completely. Like he don't want to hear no words on on any songs. So I think that really influenced the producer side of me of just like loving instrumentation, and then the soul stuff was just like the way that my mom would sit in the kitchen and just really listen to songs that were like it moved her soul. She was cooking while she was doing it at the same time. So watching that growing up really it just made me enjoy music way before I even knew that music would influence me as a musician. And then also like just my upbringing in general. My house, beautiful people that clearly love music. There was definitely turmoil in the household as far as like when people have like heartfelt things that they don't really necessarily know how to deal with, they tend to go to different things in their life, like either substance abuse or you know uh, not knowing how to express your feelings at times can really be a hindrance. And I feel like that's even why people go to music, because they feel like,
Yeah,
yeah, they feel like it's almost speaking for them. So because of that, like there's a lot of turmoil in the house. And it just led to me going outside with a lot of different people. So I feel like I have street influence, I have soul influence, I have jazz influence, I have pretty much any kind of music that was in the realm of like, especially the mainstream music like that. Especially like when you go outside and you hang out with people, you turn the radio on, like that's what everybody's listening to. So you tend to get that influence as well as who has specific things that they listen to or whatnot. Michael Jackson was a huge
yeah.
influence on my life. I think that I was like a Michael Jackson stan at one point. Like I was little and I would watch the Dancing Machine video and I try to learn how to
Stand in front of
moonwalk.
the TV doing the
Yeah,
moves.
just like
Yeah.
so like that was something that was like big for me. And even like I would listen to Michael Jackson. I would try to sing "Leave Me Alone" in my room, and like my brother would open the door and be like, "Shut the fuck up!" Like, I know you're trying to get your skills right, but like, be quiet. I'm trying to sleep. So, um, I think back to those times now, and I'm like, wow, I'm really happy that I took those leaps and I decided to do that, because now it definitely has created like a singer, rapper, producer mix that I have now. So yeah.
Yeah, I can kind of tell like you've been into it from a young, like the people who have been into it from a young age and like have been focused and learning about it from a
Yeah.
young age. Like they always have such a wide talent and like wide skill set. I feel like that's definitely true of you too.
Absolutely. Thank you, bro. Yeah, the one thing that's like crazy to me too is that music is subjective to the person that's listening to it. So it can get, you know, you can really listen to a certain word or a certain line and it does different things for different people. So, and I seeing that in my household was really interesting, especially like when my mom would only play specific. Like I have a playlist that I will listen to over and over again. I don't care how many times I heard the song. I'll just keep playing it because it's just like your soundtrack to your life. And I think that I appreciate timeless music that makes you want to go back to it, and that's kind of what I aspire to do also.
Yeah, I really appreciate music that it tells a message, but it's not. It leaves room for your own interpretation. You can like relate to the music for your own life because the stuff that they're saying can apply to you too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, what were some of your first experiences like making music or recording that inspired you to keep going and made you like really interested and want to become a rapper and a musician?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go really far back. So I was 8 years old. My brother's a rapper. Shout out to
Mm.
Donson. So he was doing that very early in my life, and because of that, you're looking at Big Brother, and you're like, I want to do what he's doing, right? So I'm like 8 years old, like trying to pen verses. I'm like copying other people's shit, like just trying to, do what I do, and then I let it go. And I actually, not for nothing, I was in class with friends, like we were trying to rap battle and stuff in our little
Mm.
journals. Second grade, bro. Like, and then yeah, I would say 13, 14 is when I really wanted to prove myself. Like not only just in general, because I was listening to a lot of Lil Wayne. Young Money was hot at that time, so
Mm.
I was really trying to just like I was hearing the substance in lyrics, and it was making me think about what was being said. My brother, he had like probably 9, 10 friends of his that they all kind of rap together and whatnot. And I just wanted to be like I could get down too, and they would just kind of brush me off, be like, yeah, all right, you know. So I feel like that a lot of times is the motivation for people to be like, what? You don't believe in me? So like, yeah, I just started penning stuff. And then I remember getting on the phone one time, and bro had me on the phone and was like, go ahead, like, you know what I'm saying, rap. And you know, I rapped whatever I had, and then they got quiet and was like, all right, that wasn't bad at all. And then that just kind of birthed like the Auspiddit. So like that was the first experience of me like actually writing and rapping. And then when it came
Mhm.
down to recording, we had a studio that was like in a back shed, and there was again like probably like 10 of us. We were like Wu-Tang at one point, you know what I mean? And there was just so many of us, like that environment I came from, like battling and pushing each other's pen and like being super competitive. And I think that that like really changed the the way that I wanted to record. So we had a recording studio like in this shed. We built it together. It was like, you know, some homies had connections with like some construction stuff, and then we would just like build a little section for the computer and all that. And then we had a separate booth that we built. It was actually pretty dope, honestly, and it was a good like 8 to 9 year run that we had.
Damn, nice.
Yeah, I was probably like 15, man, and I feel like that was the era where I started honing my skills and really being like, okay, you know, I have an engineer, Logico, shout out Logico. He was the engineer at that time, and he was really like taking it into he was using his skills that he was learning at school, and then he was bringing it to our studio, and then we would just have all the homies, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just recording things. We had like a producer at the time. That's when I really saw the ins and outs of like, oh, he does this, and then he's, you know, making the background stuff, and then I'm over here writing. So now that's when I really got to see it all, and it all inspired me. It wasn't just like, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. Like I'm behind the boards watching. I want to understand. Like I'm watching Homeboy make beats, and I'm like, I think I can do that. And so when they would leave, because like, you know, they couldn't always be there. So
Mhm.
like I would, right after school, try to rush over to the studio, and then I try and get to the boards first, so that way I can make my songs. And then they couldn't really do nothing yet. So that luxury was super pivotal to how I've designed the way that I work now.
Yeah, that's cool. I feel like a lot of people, especially nowadays, start online and they start learning on YouTube and stuff. Um, and they kind of get, because of the way the algorithm works and, other stuff, they kind of get pushed into one box. Like you go on YouTube and you can find like how to make beats, and then it shows you how to make beats. So being like in person and being around all that different stuff, that must have been, awesome. Must have been super cool to learn from.
Actually, YouTube is really what saved me, because
Oh, okay.
not for nothing, I sat there and you watch and you're like trying to conceptualize things, but I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Like, you know, I was just watching them do things that they went to school for, or like they've been doing for years before me. You know what I mean? Like my brother's like yeah, like 7, 8 years older than me, so
Mhm.
they had a lot of experience ahead of me. So because of that, I did take to YouTube probably from like 17 to 22. Really, I spent a lot of time like just in the house watching YouTube and learning how to produce properly, how to mix my stuff. And then as the mixing of the beats started happening for me, then I started learning how to mix vocals on YouTube also. And it really, at first, you're right. Like there is so much information out there that there's not really like a straight and narrow way to be like, this is how you do it. There was so much trial and error. It was frustrating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you go to school and they have a curriculum laid out for like a year or whatever, but you go to YouTube and it's just a 15-minute YouTube video and you got to find the next one and the next one. Yeah.
I know you know all too well too,
Yeah.
like, you know, trying to figure out like, because it's not even about like the style you have of the music you make. It's like trying to figure out how to make it sound good is so frustrating in the beginning.
Hmm.
So, you know, but those times are so like, I love the humble beginnings, man. I think back now and I'm like, wow, I really came a long way. And also there's always improving to do. You know, I still at times go back to YouTube and I'm like, all right, why does this person sound like this? And then I think that I'm making this kind of sound, but then it's like a little bit sharp toned or whatever. Like, how can I use this plug into my abilities even more and stuff? So I always tend to go back anyways, but I'm not watching it as long anymore. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just kind of watching it for a second and I'm like, oh, okay, they're doing that. All right.
Yeah.
Like,
Now that you already like learned the skills, you're just keeping up on like all the other stuff.
yeah, I'm not like, what's attack? What's release? Like, now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, all right, he's just doing,
Yeah, with all, they're constantly like making new plugins and stuff. Like, you got to keep up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how has this more holistic approach of being an artist and an engineer and a producer, like what kind of opportunities have you gotten from it, and how has it impacted your music making?
So the opportunities that I've gotten from it are, first and foremost, it's amazing to be able to take myself out of the rapper realm because it's so competitive. So being a producer, I can work with I pretty much sent a beat to like anybody you could think of in the state. They didn't always get back to me, and that's the funny part about it. It's like, you can create, you shoot your shot all the time. You're shooting your shot, and like people just kind of are in their own realm of whatever. So I don't really take it to heart, but I also don't feel like it's always so unified. So like the opportunities that I've gotten are usually out of state. Like, I've sent beats to like, um so I have a song that I made that's on it's on Peacock, and it's what's it called, Vampire Academy. And
Yeah.
like being an engineer and a producer and a artist has really helped me to be able to be like listening to briefs, see them, and then throw something out there, and then the fishing rod kind of like catches something on the hook, and then it ends up being in places you really didn't think that it would be. So that's really like one of the major things that made me feel like the producer engineer thing has its perks to it. And I have people that'll hit me up and be like, yo, can I record with you, can I do this and that, and it's like giving me other outlets for making money besides just like shooting my shot as a rapper, shooting my shot as a producer, or whatever the case is. So and shout out to Hard Drive. That's a independent community record label that I work with, and they really help artists understand like there's more opportunity than just trying to get everybody to rap on your beat around the way, or like trying to get everybody to be your client around the way. Like there's so many different outlets for you. I've opened up for like big artists and stuff as a rapper, but I think for like a producer engineer, the journey's kind of endless. There's always like a time frame where like I'll walk into a studio and somebody's doing something and I'm like, why don't you try that? Or they'll be doing something and I'm like, I'm gonna try that. So I think that's like, to me, the opportunity comes from not like what I can get from people, but like what I can give, and then also the give and take, the give and receiving of being a producer and an engineer, and looking at other people being engineers and taking from it. That's like huge to me. Like I said, that shit crazy.
So how has growing up in Connecticut impacted your music and your music making process?
Okay, yeah, that's actually a really good one. So Connecticut is such a diverse type of place, especially Hartford and West Hartford. Like that's where I'm from. A lot of rappers, a lot of producers, just talent in general, singers. And the way that it's impacted the way that I do music, and the way that music it like makes me feel about the scene, is that because there's so much diversity, we pull from. Because I feel like when people listen to us, they hear us talk or whatever, they're like, "Are you from New York? Or are you from this place or whatever?" And like we kind of have our own twang the way we talk. So because of that, the styles are so different. You can hear people doing this drill, fucking singing like R&B, singing, like whatever type of mainstream thing that's out there, or you could hear somebody that's super underground rapping, and that all is an influence on me. So like because of that, I kind of do a little bit of everything, but I like to structure it. Like when I send things out to, like if I do like a music review, or like somebody decides to like hear my like I'll send out like 3 records, for example. They might all be standout different records, and people will be like, those are 3 different realms. Like, how am I supposed to categorize you? Like industry people always like stay in your lane, but like that's not what I necessarily believe that music's about. It's about, yes, definitely you want to be able to hone your skills and know that you have a specific gift and know what to do with that gift. But the way that my music works for me is like I'll take a project and maybe like a different genre will be like here and there, but like I tend to just make the projects flow in a way that feels authentic to the way that I've grown up, the way that I feel like the Hartford scene is, the way that the Connecticut scene is, and that has to do with me. I'll rap my ass off sometimes. Sometimes I will do a song where I would just like to sing, because like you have to express yourself in a different way. Then sometimes like I just feel like there's a combination of it that the ultimate goal is just to make a good record. you know. And I
Hmm.
feel like some people get so caught up in the idea of like, make sure it sounds a certain way. So that's why I love Connecticut so much, because we kind of just do it all, and the melting pot is fire. You feel me? So that's what I pride myself on, really just being in that space and growing up in it and watching other people kind of try different things. Like I've seen certain artists that I thought their whole career was going to be doing underground music, and then they made a switch and started doing R&B, and they're ridiculous with it. You know, so it's pretty amazing to see what you can do when you decide to leave yourself open to pretty much anything. So shout out to you, Connecticut.
Yeah, I like that because a lot of people have like a criticism of places like Connecticut or places like that don't really have their own distinct sound. Like there's a lot of sounds like, New York drill, or they've got like the Memphis or Detroit sounds. But Connecticut doesn't really have its own style. But we just have so much good music coming out in a whole bunch of different styles that,
Right.
it seems like a silly complaint to have.
And it really is in a way. And Rick Rubin talks a lot about this. Like you, so basically, what the original thing is, whatever that, because you said like Connecticut doesn't have a style, and I feel like it's not about the state having a style sometimes. Because I mean, clearly you could go to like Atlanta and you know that there's like a sound, but then there's certain artists from Atlanta that don't sound like that.
Hmm.
So it's like my thing is, you take all your favorites that you ever listened to and you combine them, and then you put yourself, your authentic self, at the forefront of that for like content, or like for the ability of the lyricist, whatever it is, but you put yourself in the front of that, and that's the original idea, and that will always create the most amazing pieces. Not trying to think like, what's the Connecticut sound, how do we make this? It's like that'll just come from somebody deciding to really not give a fuck that much and just do what feels good to their soul. And I feel like that's always led me in the direction of making good music. I'm not really so focused on trying to like appease the world to show them that we have a Connecticut sound, because then you hold people to a standard like, oh, you're not part of Connecticut because you sound like this, and it's like everybody's just doing what they do, and like let somebody's soul just express the way they want to, you know.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I hate the idea of like, people being like excluded because they're not in the Connecticut sound or whatever. I feel like that's a strength in that there's so much different stuff that when somebody else comes with something different, like there's a spot for them.
Absolutely, and I think that's a lot of the reason why Connecticut doesn't unify sometimes, because like we're just so critical on one another. And instead of being critical, like we should just be joining and making stuff together, because that ultimately will create that sound. Like, when I look at the 90s and I saw how much people from like New York, especially from different boroughs, will come together and do music, or like, if you look at the West Coast, how many different, neighborhoods will come together and make different sounds, aside from politics or whatever. Like they created the basis of like what artists think the sound is now. So I tend to think that, I like the collaboration process. If we could do more of that, I feel like that is what will birth something brand new that the world would really enjoy as well.
Yeah, and you just touched on this a little bit, but like what else would you like to see from Connecticut, like the Connecticut music scene and Connecticut musicians in the next 5 or 10 years or so?
It's a good question. I want to see not only everybody unified, but I want to see people put on events and not make it so much about artists, which sounds crazy, but like I feel like we perform a lot for other artists. And when you perform a lot for other artists, everybody wants that little spot and that spotlight, and they're not really willing to listen to the next person to be fit. There's certain humble people that'll be like, yo, you're dope, bro, I want to work with you or whatever. Like, and that's the beauty of it. So I'm not taking away from those kinds of events. But the people that do put those events on, I know that their vision is to make people unify. And like a lot of times it's hard to do that when it's like it's like being on your Instagram and you only have artists as your followers and you're an artist. It's going to be harder to reach out because everybody wants to like do something for themselves. So I want to see like bigger events. I want to see the people that put on artist events like collaborate with like 3 or 4 of them, so that way we make big festivals, and that fans, people of the state, like are so attracted to it that it's inevitable. If you perform there, like you have a following that comes from that. And the way that I see certain fairs happen at like fairgrounds, like the Hebron Fair and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Like I want to see a music fair like that, but also like with rides and shit. Like that would be amazing. And I think that if we continue in this direction of putting on events and doing it like that, at some point it's going to be huge. And I'm excited to, you know, figure out how I could put my hand in that pot as well.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like there's a lot of people in the state who are thinking about artists and thinking about what artists want. And there's a lot of people who are putting on events thinking about what artists want and not paying so much attention to like what the fans want. And you end up with like a lot of events where there's like yeah, it's like good content or there's like a videographer, but there's just not a huge audience or even like there's people in the door, but they're not necessarily having a good time. There's not much for them to do or anything.
Yeah, it looks good for content. I mean, like when somebody's filming it, it looks like you're in front of so many people and you're doing it, and it's great for data and just the back end of things, like the backlog. It looks great. So like when you go to an artist is a little bit of game. Like when you go to investors and things like that, and you see what you've done for your shows, and they're like, oh, okay, he's done this show and he has this amount of people who came, and this is what the tickets sold or whatever the case is. Like that's good, and that's something that artists should be asking the people that put these events on, like after the fact or before or whatever. But yeah, that's definitely something that I feel like the world can get, or at least Connecticut could get more of a following doing, is like involving people that aren't musicians, because those are the fans really too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's got to be like 98, 99% of people in Connecticut. So if you're just thinking about the musicians, you're ignoring most of the people. Yeah. So who's one artist, either a rapper or a singer or any kind of vocalist that you would want to make a song with? Like who's your dream collab?
I can't give you one. I can't. So who doesn't want to work with Cole? J. Cole for sure. Kendrick, Drizzy. Top of all that, Eminem, bro. Like that's such a huge influence on me. I want to work on the influences that like made me want to write while they're still alive. Like I still want to work with Nas. I want to work with Rakim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want to work with even some of the newer people like Doechie's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's tough.
Damn, that'd be a crazy
I
collab.
feel like
Yeah.
years from now she's gonna be like looked at as another um not another, but she'll be considered like one of the Nicki Minaj's in the Lauryn Hill category, like of just greatness because of all her different skill sets. And I think that those are the kind of the artists that I like to work with, people who do different things, like Tory Lanez. Like Tory is fucking ridiculous. So, and Free Tory. And I think that there's a lot of talent that I can't really think of right now, but there's some artists out there that I know that if we got in the booth together or in the studio together, it would be fucking wildfire, man.
Yeah. And what about like what's a producer that you would want to work with, that you would want to rap on their beats?
Alchemist
Mm-hmm.
and Milky Way, of course, DjMilkywaay. But yo, Alchemist is ridiculous. I see myself, because I'm usually my producer, so I see myself like doing separate projects with like him, maybe Apollo Brown.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like real underground shit. I want to do projects like that, and then also, I have a bone to pick with Timbaland because he low key when I sent him some music, he wasn't respectful to me as an artist, like not the way that reviews should really go, and I felt like he gonna have to see me. We're gonna have to have a conversation, but there's no denying his greatness. So I think that after he has a respectful conversation with me, maybe we could get into the studio, do something tough.
Hell
And
yeah.
yeah, and then there's another producer I feel like is dope as fuck. There's so many, man. T minus.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. Um, yeah, there's a whole bunch on a list, man, that I really could run down, but it's slipping my mind right now, my brother.
What about the other way around? Who would you want to produce for?
All the artists that I talked about, I would love to produce for them. And that's really like the most exciting thing, because yeah, we can make songs together, but when I think of like, let's get in the studio, I'm like, I don't even have to be the artist. Like, let me just cook. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I just want to really go into super pop and just be able to like express and show my versatility in all different lanes. You know, like there's even genres that I haven't tapped into all the way that I feel like would be super dope. I would love to produce for The Weeknd. Um, Doing a beat with Daft Punk would be like bucket list, bro. Like
Yeah, that
bucket
would be
list.
like a dream come true. Dang.
Yeah.
So, what are some of your goals in terms of record labels? Are you looking to sign a deal? Are you looking to stay independent? And like, what kind of things are you looking for in a deal, or what kind of things are you looking to avoid?
So I feel like the industry's changed a lot.
Yeah.
And because of that, there's not really a gatekeeper record label that you necessarily need to make sure that you have a following.
Hmm.
So for the meantime, I just feel like my goal is to build a fan base independently. And if it makes sense later down the road, I can see a partnership happening. I don't know how long that would last or what that exactly would look like, but um, the way that I like to run my life and my business is I need to be hands on with it.
Hmm.
So to be able to, you know, blindly hand something over to a record label, a bunch of fucking people I don't even know that probably don't really care about me, look at me as another statistic or a number. I probably won't be, you know, too inclined to do so. So because of that, I'm not really thinking a deal is something that like my career is going to need. However, again, if it makes sense, then
Hmm.
probably one person, two people actually that like really make a lot of sense in that manner is Mac Miller. Rest in peace, Mac Miller. Because Mac, what he did was he didn't get involved with Warner at all until he felt like it made sense in his career. You know, he was independent for so long, made such a huge impact on just like Pittsburgh and like the outer cities, and then all of a sudden it started spilling over to the point where like he already had it. He really didn't have to sign. I'm sure they threw a huge number at him, so he was like,
Hmm.
but you know, I don't necessarily get swayed by numbers. You know, like somebody could tell me like 20 million, and like, yeah, it sounds huge, and like that'd be great. But you know, when you build something and you know that it's worth it, you don't necessarily need to always compromise for a machine to take over because
Yeah.
they won't always take as much care as you will, even if it might be a little bit more work. And I've never been opposed to more work. So, and then Russ also is another artist that talks a lot about that. And shout out to Russ. That I would love to work with Russ too.
Mm, yeah.
That's a big one right there. Um, Pause. You know, yeah, I feel like the way that the industry works, you know, you could partner with people, but like the minute you relinquish too much to somebody, they can get over on you and they can hide things. And you know, artists, audit your label, man. Audit your label if you do work with somebody because they play around a little bit too much. So
Yeah, I feel like what makes the most sense is just like partnering with somebody as opposed to like these full on, 360 deals and stuff.
yeah,
We've said enough about 360 deals. I'm sure
right,
everybody's got their opinions about that.
exactly. And you know, like 360s did make sense at one point, especially when you didn't have anything. You're like, I need to figure this out. I need a 360 deal. But like the way that, oh, you know who also talked about this was Jelly Roll. Shout out to him. So, right, Jelly Roll was saying basically, you anytime that you start with a label, they like the standard deal, which is, there might be a generous one, like an 80-20.
Hmm.
They take 80, you take 20. You have to, everything that you sell, they might front you all this money, but you need to recuperate that money. And how do you do it? It's out of all the sales you make. And you don't start making a fucking dime until they recuperate it through the 20% that's in every stream, every sale, every show, whatever the case is, depending on what your deal is and what they have their hands in. So like that doesn't sound lucrative. People thinking that they're getting an unlimited credit line of money from their label, like, oh, my label loves me. They think my talent is so dope that they about to give me all this money, and it's like that's not even yours, bro. Like until you honestly give that back to them and then recuperate and then be able to make some money off of that, it's not even. How are you supposed to survive? There's no career out of that. Like, so a lot of really amazing talent we probably won't hear from because they got shelved because they have so much debt. They're just in the hole,
Hmm.
you know. And I feel like part of my soul's mission is to be able to help turn that around a little bit, you know, in whatever way I can. If I can solidify myself in the industry, not if, when I solidify myself in the industry, there's going to be something that I implement that's gonna really help those that are kind of suffering in that manner. Um, there is this producer that I saw. He signed like recently. He signed like a 30-year deal, bro. 30,
Damn.
30 fucking years. I'm not giving anybody 30 years of my life unless it is the kindest, most amazing, fucking lucrative, also like free deal that I could possibly have, you
I
know?
mean, they'd have to set me up on a private island with like a full staff for 30 years. That's
Yes.
crazy.
Like, yeah, I need to be able to like change everybody I know's life and not feel like my soul is getting drained in the process. Like I can do my work and go home to my family, and like I care more about that than to be able to like be some type of a whatever kind of icon. People care so much about like being something that like they'll throw their life away to be signed to a record label. And I don't necessarily believe like that's the epitome of life. You know, like, I want to be able to go outside and love my life and be able to leave, you know, whatever venue that I do and stuff and go home to my family and feel like, you know, I don't have to get tugged by some schedule that somebody gave me. Like I'd like to make my schedule and then be able to, you know, tell the people around me like this is what I'm doing at these times, this is what I'm doing at these times, whatever the case is. Like that's kind of how I operate time management wise now in my life. So I got to continue that in whatever way possible so that way I can have sanity.
Yeah, hell yeah. Like you said, you're like, yeah, if you want to stay hands on with it, you definitely want to, maintain control and, not just be giving that away to, especially to people that you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thinking forward about your music and your body of work, what are some of the messages that you've wanted to include in your music? And what are like what's the legacy that you want your music to have?
That's a dope question. So first, what separates me from other people is that I need to talk about things that other people don't, right? Because I've listened to tons of music and there's always like this fine line that people walk to where like they don't want to offend people or they don't want to give their necessarily certain views because they feel like it's going to turn people off. But I'm a firm believer in like divide the audience if you have to. It's okay. You know what I mean? If you like me, like me. If you don't, you don't. So my body of work has to be a soul reflection. And I'm always refining my soul like every day. You know, I care about myself, I care about others. That's just like there's a care that I put into the music that also has to reflect the things that I say. So that's definitely like one thing that I want to bring to music is that it's all right to not shit on each other. You know what I mean? Like I'm a battle rapper at first, so it's easy for me to get on a track and be like, let me tell you about you. You know what I mean? But I feel as if there's this adverse thing where there's a truth, a universal truth that people tend to ignore because they want to make a good record. And it's like, why can't we give universal truth and make a good record? So I think that that's what I want to do with my career. And I've been leaning more towards that. Um, it's almost like positivity tends to be corny to others. And, but everybody wants it. Everybody wants peace. It's like the weirdest shit. So because of that, um, I've been like leaving room for my duality. Like, all right, I'll do a couple records here and there so that way you guys can know like I'm a human at the end of the day. But like my mission in life is to spread as much love as I possibly can because we're only here for so long, man. Like I don't know how long that the time is ticking on my vessel. So because of that, I always want to make sure that like some sort of beauty comes out of this, and that's the legacy that I want to live. Like people will look back and say like he gave a fuck, and that I feel like that's what legends are.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super important. And I feel like these things they're talking about like peace of mind and like, tranquility, they're good for you, but they're kind of like, vegetables where it's like it's not the most glamorous thing. People they're more likely to
Tell me
look at
about
something that's, upsetting or
it. Yeah.
any of that, but like the peace of mind is important and it's like it's awesome to, be intentional about promoting that positivity. So,
Right, and I've been eating a shit ton of veggies lately, bro. Like
so
I know exactly the fruits and veggies lately have been making me feel real good. Like yo, my skin going different, bro. Like, nah, but like the idea of yeah, something that you don't necessarily look at like it's not Popeyes. You're not like, but like you can if you keep doing it, you'll realize like it actually is the num num num. Like you know what I mean? So yeah, that peace and tranquility is something that like has become a huge part of my world, and it just I can't waver with that. And my next body of work that I put out is definitely gonna have what people are used to hearing from me, and also some things that they're gonna be like, this is a different version of him that I haven't got to experience. Maybe in like conversating with the closest people to me, they've probably heard me speak like that. But anybody that just decides to click play, I'm taking them through a journey of somebody who it's kind of like the everyday person. I used myself as like the sacrifice in a way to be like, all right, I'm gonna use my own experiences to show how somebody could kind of turn their shit around. But it's kind of like everybody's story. Like we have made choices in our lives, good or bad. The bad ones kind of haunt us sometimes, and as the project goes on, it kind of just is the release of that and being able to be like, I don't have to look back at that shit. So yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about this project. What's it going to be called?
So it's called This Hurts Me More, and the cover of the project really says a lot. It's me sitting down. There's a light I'm looking up at, and it's kind of shining on me, and there's darkness all around me, and I feel like that's kind of the metaphor of the entire project. Also, there's a couple big features on there. One of the big features is my boy DjMilkywaay.
Hell yeah!
You know what I'm saying? I appreciate your help in not only production on one of the probably one of my favorite songs on there. With shout out Adversity.
Hell yeah!
But yeah, you also came to the stew one day and you played bass on one of my more like spiritual, peaceful type of tracks, and that organic feel that you brought to it, bro. Like I appreciate it because it really gives the idea of like that collaboration that we were talking about earlier of how much beauty comes out of that. And it was like a song that I meant to have that type of peaceful feeling to. So it was dope. And I got a few big features on there that I won't say right now, but there's some I'm turning it up a notch. You know what I mean? The career is moving along, and it might shock some people. They're gonna be like, "How did he get a song with him?" So, I'm excited for that. I'm gonna just leave it at that. I produced most of the project myself. Also, some of the other features are my boy I am JRMG. JR, he calls himself JR Music Group on a lot of the platforms, but JRMG. And my boy Keep It Rails on there. I got a cameo from my blood brother Dawn's son on one of the songs, and him and I collaborate a lot. And there's a few producers on there that probably like 2 or 3 that I outsourced that I felt like I definitely needed to bring a different element to the project. So everything just flows in a certain way that if you haven't heard of Auspiddit project before, I feel like this is like a reset for me, and I'm excited for this one.
So what is the listener going to experience while they're listening to the album? Like what kind of like journey did you want to take them on?
They're going to leave their body and they're going to go on a cosmic journey. So like one thing that I think that the listener is going to really appreciate is the honesty from me. I'm really talking about like what rap has done to me over the years. It's been like a 15-year journey. So because of that, you wonder whether like things are going to really happen for you or not. And it can be stressful. And sometimes you make very emotional, bad decisions because of that. So you're going to hear like a vulnerability from me that hasn't necessarily been touched on yet. And I kind of was hesitant to, but I feel like now's the time to do that. And then also you're going to hear sounds that really reflect, like you can play songs for if you're having a bad day or a good day, pretty much is what I'm getting at. You can listen to certain songs and be like, wow, this makes me feel good. And then you'll hear certain songs and be like, okay, I see why he decided to, go that route with the production and the things he was saying and all that. And I wanna take people on a real cosmic ass journey. Like by the end of it, you're gonna be like, I'm looking at myself like this is like a mirror reflection here. So yeah, that was the goal with it.
Sounds awesome. So for like our listeners, what would you recommend they do like to prepare for this album? Like, is there any kind of specific setting they should be in when they listen to it
Yeah.
or anything like that?
That was a dope question. Yeah. First and foremost, take a deep breath because you're gonna have about 18 songs of pure rawness. And one thing that I like to do before I listen to projects, I meditate. I sit and I take a little bit of time to just like, okay, I clear out all the thoughts in my mind, all the preconceived notions about what I think this person looks like and does, whatever the case is. Cause I feel like people always try to gauge who you are by listening to like how you talk, how you say things, how you dress, whatever the case is, your skin color, which is fucking stupid. But take all that away, give yourself some time, sit in your car, sit in your room. You can chill with the homies, but if you are going to chill with the homies, there's some songs in there where you could just play it and let it rock, and you're going to be like, "Damn, this is cool for like a party." But there's some topics on there that it's really for the person that's taking a deep listen. Mm-hmm. So I'm really looking forward to seeing who can digest the actual lyricism that I put in there too, because there's some little Easter eggs that I threw in there that will lead into other things that I decide to do in my career.
Damn, sounds cool. Are there any other messages that you want to give to any of your listeners or young fans?
Yeah, kind of like advice. Let me look into the camera and do this one. Care about yourself, because if you don't care about yourself, you cannot pour into others. And a lot of times on this journey, especially, I forgot almost how to take care of myself. I'm very selfless when it comes to that. I always look to, I'm a recovering people pleaser. So like, because of that, it's led for me to not really look at how I take care of myself. Music was the only thing that really helped me have therapy. So once this project got birthed because I decided to say, you know what, I matter. And I affect other people in a positive light by caring about myself, So anybody that's listening, care about yourself. It's not selfish, and it's okay to be a little bit, because ultimately it works in a selfless favor. And one more thing I want to say too is that if you're young and you're starting music, do your research on the music business, because the music business is a lot different than just the creative process. And coming more into the business side of it, it's helping me realize that when I'm working with like bigger artists, there's kind of a protocol that we go based on when it comes down to splits, when it comes down to just making sure that releases happen a certain way. And there's no slip ups when it comes to that, because the way that a vision works, you have to execute it. And those kind of go hand in hand. If you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to execute your vision properly. You won't be able to do it with care. So that's pretty much my advice right there. And Connecticut, shout out to Connecticut. Shout out to 1990 something, Joe Banger. Appreciate home for, hooking me up with the drip right here. And he pretty much hooks everybody up in the state with drip, as well as like other people. So, I'm a full Connecticut rep, regardless of like who I end up working with in the future. Whatnot.
Yeah, for real. Shout out 1990 something.
Yes, Ersky.
All right, Austin. Thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation.
I appreciate it, bro. We'll have another one soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Don't be thinking you're riding along cause you gassing me. I'm really him. You be an idiot. You ain't see that in me. I'm calling the ghetto, smoking weed, but got a strap with me. She giving that cat that I'ma make it a catastrophe. I scratch the records.